Hey there, I'm Sai, and today I want to address the sugar diet, including the questions and the things that you have all said to me in the comments section of my previous video about my sugar diet experience. And I want to start off by saying that I'm going to talk about a few people, and those people that I'm talking about, I actually like them in one way or another for the most part. So just because I'm going to include some things about these people that might not sound good doesn't mean that I don't appreciate them in some way or even have some kind of good feeling towards them, because I tend to like people. That being said, when it comes to the sugar diet, a lot of you said to me that I did it wrong. So I'm going to address that. In addition to that, I'm going to also tell you about my previous experience with the sugar diet, which I pretty much did a long time ago without ever thinking of it as the sugar diet. But most importantly, I'm going to give you my warning that you should be careful with this sugar diet, because there are a lot of people out there promoting it and a lot of people getting the wrong idea. And I will start off by saying that mostly vegans are using the sugar diet to promote this vegan diet, high fruit diet. And I'm going to just tell you right up front that if you're hoping I'm going to say something good about that type of eating, then you're probably in the wrong place. You're probably going to be disappointed. But if you're open-minded enough to hear what I have to say, it might save you a lot of trouble down the road. So let's start off with specifically my experience on the sugar diet and what I did. Just to recap really quick, I had sugar, including fruits and regular organic white sugar. And I also had starches, which a lot of people said that was wrong. And I also had protein every single day that I did the sugar diet. And I went as close to zero fat as a person could possibly do. You couldn't get any lower in fat than I went when I was doing the sugar diet. It just isn't possible unless you ate straight sugar, period. That being said, for the people who said that I did the sugar diet wrong, I'd say that I did the sugar diet the only way that it could possibly be right, with one exception, and that is I could just eat fruit and then eat lean meat with absolutely no fat instead of having the starches. I'd say that if you're going to do a sugar diet, then the way that I just said is the very best way that you could do it. And I would also back up the way that I did it with what Cole Robinson said in at least some of his videos, and that was that you eat sugar all day and then you have lean protein in the evening. So the other way that people have been talking about that you actually do the sugar diet, and the way that people would probably say is the right way to do it, is that you have zero protein, zero fat, all sugar all day long, and you do that for periods of days. And then you have some days where you actually include protein in your diet. And so I'd say I get that, and it might serve a specific purpose if you're going to do it short term. And that's the big thing that I think you have to realize if you're going to do this sugar diet. If you're trying to do something like this long term, you're going to probably run into the same problem that all the fruitarians run into. And that being said, I have been on a fruitarian style diet, and I did that and experimented with that quite a bit. And let's give credit where credit is due again. That is to Doug Graham, because he's the one that came up with the 80-10-10 diet. And that is something that sparked a whole new understanding of health. And apparently Doug Graham understood the Randall cycle. He knew that you don't combine fats and sugar because there's an issue with the way your body metabolizes those nutrients and the competing of those macronutrients in your body. That being said, I still think there is some question about that. And if you want to know what Bart K says, because everybody's going to be hearing from Bart K about this, my understanding is as long as you're in a calorie deficit, which calories are a whole nother subject that he'd make fun of me for even talking about, for example. But if you are eating in a way where you're not getting enough food, then having competo macronutrients like carbohydrates and fat isn't going to be as damaging as if you're eating in a surplus of what you need for your nutrition and maintenance. And that's where a lot of fat and a lot of carbohydrates could become a problem with the Randall cycle. So going further with this though, if you're just talking about can you lose weight eating only fruit and sugar? Well, I know from my own experience that you can drastically drop weight doing that. And it would be fairly easy because you can literally eat as much fruit and sugar, just those things without any fat or protein, and you're never going to be able to gain weight. Now, you might gain fat eventually, but you're going to lose body weight for sure, and you're more likely to lose muscle and fat when you eat that way. And you can look at the long-term fruitarians and you can see that that's true. Nobody who's eating just sugar is going to be fat in the sense that they're going to become obese. They are going to get more like a skeleton, and they're going to become skinny even if it's eventually skinny fat. And I think that is one of the long-term things that could happen, is that if you just keep trying to eat that way, your body's going to go into some kind of shock mode, and you're probably going to gain extra body fat, even if it's not a lot, on a very, very, very skeleton-like frame, which I think is probably one of the least desirable ways to be. So that's what you're looking at if you're thinking about going vegan, and specifically sugar-based long-term. So now I just want to bring up a couple of people as examples. So first of all, Doug Graham seems like a great guy. I haven't met him personally, but if you look at his skin, you're going to see spots all over it, and you can argue that that's just from the sun, but you could also argue that that is glycation from all of the sugars that he has eaten for such a long period of time in combination with the sun. One way or another, that's kind of the best outcome you might be able to expect if you're going to be on a sugar diet long term. Let's look at Durian Rider, because a lot of people have went back to thinking that Durian Rider has some great understanding of health. And if you just go back in time and look at some of his older videos, you'll see where his teeth started to become almost rotten-like. And then all of a sudden, he has these brand new looking, beautiful white teeth. And that's because those teeth are not his real teeth. So I don't know if Durian Rider got crowns or if he had implants, but one way or another, following a very high sugar diet with a lot of fruit in it, his teeth basically rotted out. He's going to say probably something, if I remember correctly, like it was antibiotics from when he was younger. And yeah, that may have started him down the wrong path, but I would argue that if he would have had animal fats and protein, that he could have literally saved his teeth. So that's Durian Rider. So you've got two examples of people who did this long term. You've even got examples of people like Gabriel Cousens, who has changed his standpoint here and there about what else to eat besides fruit. And what I noticed about him is, as he aged, he started to look and sound like an alcoholic. And I'm pretty sure that was from all of that fruit, and also from his brain just not getting what he needed and causing his speech to change. Then you've got Freely, the banana girl. She has breasts, but those are not real breasts. So if she didn't have that, she'd probably look more like those very skinny, malnutritioned vegans that are the fruitarian style vegans. And I believe that Freely's brain has suffered a lot. And you can see that a lot of these people that do this stuff long term, they become vegans for the sake of animals. And I understand that it's not a good idea to kill animals unless you're going to eat them, and we should treat animals with respect. But these people who do this kind of long-term sugar stuff and veganism usually become vegan for the animals at some point, and then all of their understanding of the past seems to disappear. And you might argue that their brain has suffered and they don't remember that 40 years ago, there was pretty much no such thing as a vegan. We did not become the people that we are on a vegan diet. There are no cultures that are vegan. So you don't want to go in that way, trust me. So then we can look at everybody's favorite vegan, probably Eli Martyr. And Eli Martyr is probably one of the people who is the most disciplined of the vegans, according to himself, maintaining a primarily fruit diet. And his skin is turning yellow, and that is something you can also expect if you are a vegan long term. And your wound healing slows down. And then there's Jillian Berry, who is having blood sugar issues being a vegan. And she basically is one of those people that considers herself a raw vegan. And I know that she includes things besides fruits, but the majority of her calories are coming from carbohydrates. And you can see that long term, that's not necessarily going to be good for your blood sugar and the way that your health is ultimately as a result of just having sugar. And another thing I want to bring up is Casey from the Vegetable Police, another person who I feel warm towards most of the time, but lately he has gotten pretty arrogant. I think he forgot that he quit being vegan multiple times, and he is saying things like meat eater scum and basically putting anybody down who eats meat in a way that maybe he thinks is funny, but it sounds passive aggressive at best to me, but a sign of arrogance to some degree. And also maybe it's just that his brain is not working as good as it used to work. Something that he could solve if he just added meat back in. I also want to go into more detail about vegetable please really quick here, and that is that he is taking creatine, and that is the only thing I think that is saving him right now. He has tried some version of the sugar diet many times, and he's always failed. This is the first time that he's having some level of success a little bit longer, and I would attribute that to the fact that he is having creatine. He claims, though, that he has teeth problems. That is one of the things that you are definitely going to have to deal with if you're going to go long-term sugar diet. And I want to say that you think Cole Robinson of the Snake Diet is going to be long-term just sugar, no protein? I don't think so. And Mark Bell, I don't think so. They're not going to become vegan. They're not vegan friendly. They just understand that you can lose a lot of weight if you just eat sugar. So if that's what you're looking for and you want to do that for a period of time to lose weight, you might be successful. I don't know if there's a high cost to doing that, but as long as you're not doing it long term, maybe there's some benefit. Maybe it can give you some level of metabolic flexibility, being able to burn fats or carbohydrates better. I'm not sure, but I could definitely understand why that would appeal to you if your idea is just that you want to lose weight. You probably could succeed to some degree by just eating sugar. Another thing that you're going to notice if you decide to do this sugar diet long term is your teeth or your gums specifically are going to start to become this grayish color. They're going to lose their pink kind of healthy look that pretty much people who eat animal foods have, and they're going to start to have this faded look to them. It's going to be harder to distinguish where your gums end and where your teeth begin. And that's just a fact. You can go and look at all the long-term vegans and you're going to see that that is exactly what happens. And I also want to remind you, just in case you're thinking about following this sugar diet in a long-term vegan sort of way, that most people who are vegan do not have children, especially people who are going to be doing some sort of high sugar diet form of veganism. And that is because when somebody is vegan and their children are vegan or close to vegan, you start to notice that they're hungry all the time, and at some point you might start to think that their health is suffering and it might be your fault. And if you're smart enough to see what's happening, you're going to change that and you're going to not be vegan anymore, and at least you're not going to have your kids be vegan. So when you hear all of these people praising veganism, check first, do they have children? And are they forcing their children to eat a vegan diet? God bless these people, and I understand. I've been there to some degree, but I realized it soon enough to start giving my kids more animal foods. And I say that if you're thinking about going down the path of some sugar diet sort of way of eating, the very least you got to do for your health and for the health of your children is you've got to add some of those animal foods that have fat in them, like dairy, for example. At least be a vegetarian because you have milk and cheese and cream and those sort of things. That could save your children's health. I would also recommend adding eggs while you're at it if you want to stick more to the vegetarian way of being. So let's wrap this up. I'd love to hear your comments and just generally know what you think about what I've said here. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Are you just doing this sugar fast for the short term to lose some weight real quick? Do you think what I've said is based in reality? I think if you want to do the sugar diet, then for the most part, make sure that you're including those animal proteins at least a few times a week for your evening meal. That's the one thing that people could say hasn't been tried long term by most people. And I think that that's something that might be able to be sustained for quite a while. And I don't think your health is going to suffer too much from that. All things considered, I still have a lot to learn. I've been looking for the right way of eating for myself for a very long time, and I think I've come a long way. I think the things that I'm saying are based in my experience, so I think they have some credence. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, share this video with others. If you want to help support this channel, you can use this QR code to send me Bitcoin, or check the links in the description and use those if they seem like things that will be helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching.